Hello my dear friends and welcome to StudyIQ. I am Joy and today in this lecture we will discuss about the Global Environment Outlook Report of UNEP, United Nations Environment Programme. So let us look into the current affairs. The 6th edition of the Global Environment Outlook, that is GEO 6 from the UN Environment Programme UNEP on the theme Healthy Planet, Healthy People was released recently. So we will look into the details of this report in detail in this lecture. But before we begin, this is our channel StudyIQ and we are providing pen drive courses for various competitive examinations including SSC bank courses, UPSC optionals, SSC JE courses, teaching examinations, railway examinations, defense examinations, RBI grade B, NABARD grade A, UGC NET, UPSC Civil Services Examination, CLAT exams for various state PSCs and also for various professional courses. You can visit our website www.studyiq.com for more details, or you can call to any of these numbers for more information. Now let us first understand what is this report for, the Global Environment Outlook Report. Now the world leaders came up with the Paris Climate Deal in the year 2015. So the Paris Climate Deal promised actions to cut the emissions in order to limit the global temperature rises to 1.5 degrees Celsius. So the objective of the Paris Climate Deal was to cut the emissions, and the world leaders had agreed to cut down the emissions from their respective countries in order to bring down the global temperature rises. But the Paris Climate Change Deal or the Paris Climate Deal did not deal with the health impacts of pollution, of deforestation and mechanized food chain. Now there is no international agreement for the environment which is similar to the Paris Accord for the climate. So Paris Accord deals with climate change. So there are no similar deals or accords with regard to environment. So GEO or the Global Environment Outlook partly addresses the gap where there is no international accord in order to deal with the environment, and the Global Environment Outlook brings the attention of world nations to the impact of environmental problems on humans. So it deals with how the environmental problems can impact the human beings and their life. Now let us understand what are the report highlights. Now the report highlights mainly about three things. One is the premature deaths, second one widening inequality, and thirdly the health aspects. So first let us come to the premature death. Now according to the report, a quarter of all premature deaths and diseases worldwide are due to man-made pollution and environmental damage. So premature death is a result of man-made pollution and thereby environmental damage. Now the report also notes on deadly smoke including emissions like chemical pollutant, drinking water, destruction of ecosystems, etc., which have impacted the livelihood of many people. So the pollution and the man-made emissions and pollution that leads to environmental degradation has a huge impact on the living organisms, especially human beings. And it accounts for almost 1/4 or a quarter of the whole diseases and premature deaths worldwide. So it discusses about the health impacts of environmental degradation. Secondly, it also talks about inequality. It says that there is a widening gap between rich countries and poor countries. So how does this happen? The rich countries are becoming richer and the poor countries are becoming poorer, and that is why there is a widening gap between the rich countries in the world, which are the developed countries, and the poor countries, that is underdeveloped or the least developed countries. Now some data is also given by the report. According to the GEO, that is Global Environmental Outlook, top 10% of the population globally, that means the top 10% of population in terms of wealth contribute towards 45% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. So almost half of the greenhouse gas emissions are caused by the top 10 or the richest 10% of the population in the world, and the bottom 50%, that is half of the population which are in the bottom level in terms of wealth, they contribute only towards 13% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. But when it comes to pollution impacts or the impacts of the environmental degradation or pollution, the poor are the sufferers. The rich, they can access better medical facilities, treatment, healthcare, etc. But the poor population, they cannot afford medication or healthcare. So the sufferers are the poor. Now the deeds of the rich impacts the poor population worse. And the report also says that rampant overconsumption, pollution and food wastage in the developed world, that is in the richer countries, leads to social issues or economic issues like hunger, poverty, diseases, etc. in the least developed countries and underdeveloping countries. So the overconsumption in rich countries is one cause for poverty, health issues, hunger, diseases, etc. in poor countries or least developed countries. And along with that, it also widens the inequality levels among the rich countries and the poor countries. Now coming to the health factor, poor environmental conditions or the impact of environmental degradation has caused around 25% of the global diseases and mortality. In the year 2015 alone, 9 million deaths were caused due to poor environmental conditions. And it also specifies certain cases like drinking water, sanitation, etc. So nearly 1.4 million people die every year from preventable diseases, those diseases that could have been prevented with lack of access to clean drinking water. So clean drinking water, if provided, could have reduced 1.5 or 1.4 million deaths, which were highly preventable in nature, but because of inaccessibility to proper drinking water or clean and safe drinking water at the global level, there was 1.4 million deaths on an average every year. And such examples are diarrhea, parasites, etc., which harm the human body. And coming to air pollution alone causes 6 to 7 million deaths annually. Now also the chemicals that are pumped into the seas, they also cause adverse health impacts or effects. Other major issues are land degradation through mega farming or deforestation, unchecked use of antibiotics in food production. Now unchecked use of antibiotics has resulted in drug-resistant superbugs becoming the world's #1 cause of premature deaths. So these are some of the highlights of the report. Now coming to what is required or what is the way ahead. The most important thing to be done on an urgent basis is to arrest and reverse the present environmental situation. So the production in the economy should turn into sustainable production methods. Now at the cost of environment, if the production or the output increases, in the short run it will increase the GDP or the output of an economy. But in a long run, what will happen? The GDP growth in the short run will become meaningless because it will impact the cost of lives, the human resources will be impacted, the working hours or the efficiency will come down, and the expenses for public healthcare will also increase. So in the long run, this is definitely going to impact the economy in a negative sense. So even though the environmental degradation or by degrading or by overutilizing the environment, if the GDP numbers go up in the short run, in the long run definitely it will bounce back. So no economy should try to increase or improve the output or the GDP at the cost of the environment. And secondly, coming to the human behavior, we have already discussed about the food wastage in the rich countries causing hunger and poverty in the poor countries. So according to statistics, by 2050 the world will likely have to feed around 10 billion people. So this increased demand has to be met. Now there are two options. One is to raise the production and the second option is that the food wastage can be reduced. Now currently the world throws away around a third of the food that is produced. 1/3 of the food that is produced has been wasted around the world. And among the total food wastage, around 56% is contributed by the rich countries. So the food wastage itself accounts for around 9% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. So by changing the human behavior, the rates of emissions and environmental degradation can come down. And the report also advises or recommends on adopting less meat intensive diets. And it also suggests that in agricultural practices, the pesticide use should come down in order to improve the air quality and the water quality. So these are some recommendations given by the report. And specifically about the agricultural sector, the report highlights that the meat production currently uses 77% of the agricultural land. So if the population adopts a less meat intensive diet, it will increase the area that is available for agriculture. And also the agricultural production consumes around 70% of the global water. So water use efficiency should be introduced and various techniques should be adopted in agriculture to make it more scientific and modern by reducing the water use or water consumption in agricultural sector. So these are certain recommendations of the report, and you can find the PDF of this lecture on my Facebook page, and for more updates about my lectures and PDFs, you can follow my Facebook page, and you can also write to me at joyce.studyiq@gmail.com. Thank you.